film is full of so many ideas and recurring images, from the familiar relationships of parent to child, sisters, daughters, to nature and everything else. Where did this start for you? What was your way into this project?
Yes, and thank you all for watching everything. It was a handful of things. It wasn't just one thing that led me into the film. I knew I wanted to explore the life of a Black woman in the South in a very fluid way, but I had to smell the air of the film before I could get to the page, and so I took a lot of photographs of the South, in Tennessee, where I'm from, and Mississippi and Alabama, where my family is from, my parents are from, and family members, and doing that and doing this sensorial research in a way, and getting the texture of the film really inspired me to come to the page. And I call the scenes in the film portraits, and I would write some portraits and take away, but everything I wrote I needed to write to get to what landed in the film, which is a 60-page script. And so it was really a lot of finding, listening, and taking away what it didn't want.
And I imagine finding a lot of it with your actors, some of whom are appearing in a film for the first time, and some of whom I'm thinking of we talked before about the women in the church that we see in the wedding scene, are people from the community. What was your collaboration like with the performers? Because it's such a film that leaves a lot unsaid, that relies on the performers to perform gestures, long embrace. I told you before that I the second time I saw the film, I timed that first hug because it seemed so extraordinarily intimately long that I knew that it was an impressive number, and it's about 5 minutes. And it's remarkable to me because I've had hugs that long, but I've never seen one like that. So how did you get that out of your performers?
It's interesting because I haven't timed it, but I always thought it was 7. I don't know why I thought it was.
Well, let's say 7. Let's round up,
I don't know why. I was like, oh, that's shorter than But no, I love working with a mix of experienced actors and first-time actors, and in the casting process, it was, as you mentioned, I don't rely a lot on dialogue in the film, and it is communicating through gesture, through the body, through silence. And so, for instance, the Charlene, who plays late teens to early 30s Mac, she's a friend of mine. She's a poet. She's someone I know in my life, and I was with her one day in the park, and I just saw it. You know what I mean? And I started to explore with her, and for that role, I needed a face that can carry many years, for late teens to early 30s, to believe someone who can believe and can play that, and she has that. But also, I recognize in her a quality to where her face is expressive without her needing to say something, And for Reginald Helms Jr., who plays older Wood, I was just in the production office, not having a Wood yet, Googling. And I think I Googled maybe musician from the South or something. He came up, he's a rapper. And I watched one of his music videos, and it's just so expressive. Also, he just has a face, you know what I mean? And someone in the crew happened to know someone from his management, and we had a meeting, and I really, it sparked something. And when I brought him and Charlene together, there was a chemistry. And also, in talking to him about the character, you just see how, okay, yes, this is just, it lands, And so I trust, I like to say, I know what I'm looking for, but I'm open to how I get there. And so that's the same with casting. I trust it coming from different places. For instance, Grandma Betty, I was doing an open call in Memphis, and she was there with her daughter and her granddaughter and some grandchildren. She wasn't auditioning, she was off to the side. But I was like, hi, what's her name? And she had a go-to for everywhere. My mom used to have one, and I knew for that role, I wanted someone who actually had eaten clay dirt, was familiar with it. And I asked her, and we had a great conversation around it, you know what I mean? And she ended up being the person, and also I already knew it was Charlene, and there's a resemblance there, you know. So you just start to build it, and so I'm open, you know what I mean. I'm always looking, and of course, I also had a traditional casting director, so it's like a lot of hooks in the water.
And your collaboration with your cinematographer too, Jomo Frey, is really remarkable. I mean, one of the things that stood out to me the first time I saw it was the hands. And I think I told you this before, that in particular the grandmother's hands, lingering on that, the texture of her hands just made me, first of all, made me think about my own grandmother's hands and about aging and about the beauty of that. But also, you have sequences here in which we are focusing on parts of the body, on holding, on hands, on touching. Can you tell us a little bit more about just how tactile this film is and your approach to that, your ideas about that?
Yes, you know, for me, hands are right up there with eyes. You know, I really find them to be so expressive, and there are moments like with the hands, and there's Grandma Betty talking about the clay dirt. That's in the script. I knew it was going to be all those hands, but then there are moments where it was a discovery that I wanted to land on the hands. You know, for instance, in the hug scene, that's not scripted, but by the time we got there, the amount, how the rhymes of the hands was there, so I knew the hands were going to play a big part in that scene, you know. But for me, the hands say so much. For instance, when you're in the car and you see the children's hands with Grandma Betty's hands, it's just so much is communicated in just that for me. You know, the different generations, all of that, and so I love to sit with the expressiveness of them and to trust. I trust what the body can say, you know.
And you're a poet by trade as well. Something that I've heard you use to describe some sequences in the film is the phrase slant rhyme, which is not a phrase that I hear filmmakers talk about. It's a phrase from poetry. What do you mean by that in terms of the film?
Yeah, so like the slant rhymes, for instance, when you see the hug scene with Mac and Wood, and how that rhymes, how that's a slant rhyme with the dancing scene with Isaiah and Evelyn. You know what I mean? It's how the hands rhyme, and how it could also be a slant rhyme, that scene, the grocery store scene with or their kissing scene, their first kissing is a slant rhyme with their breakup scene on the road. You know what I mean? Like how these moments speak to each other and how they speak to the changes in the relationship, the changes in these people. It's another layer, just how sound can be another layer. How can these hands and how folks are embracing or letting go be another layer to speak to the changes happening in the film?
Yeah, I remember the first time that I saw it. I think it was around the time of the first long embrace. Something that I really wondered was how you figured out how to structure the film, how and when to move between the various time periods, because I remember being so moved by that embrace, and it's early enough in the film that I didn't know why. I didn't know a lot about the characters at that point, but something in the way that they were holding each other told me everything I needed to know, and it was interesting to kind of watch the rest of the movie with that in mind, not with that as the climax, but with that as a thing that I already knew about where these people were going. How did you figure out how to kind of have emotional resonance in the structure?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a lot of it came from exploration, you know, and trying things at different places and seeing how it changed the resonance, because it wouldn't just affect that scene, it affects everything, you know what I mean? So seeing how, because it's also information too, so how that affects the film. And I tried that scene later and it just didn't, it felt like, especially working in tandem with what comes after, when you hear that hit of thunder and it's the river scene, it felt like it wanted that emotional, an emotional peak in that moment, like a really hard hit. And I believe we tried being Lee China Medical, the editor tried splitting it up too, like, you know what I mean, splitting up to see if it wanted maybe a bit here and then a bit later, but it always wanted it there. And trusting that even once trusting the unveiling of the information, and also that the emotion, even if you don't have all the details, you know what I mean, the emotion is there.
And a lot of this is anchored in kind of intergenerational knowledge, like the transference of lessons from grandmother to granddaughter, but particularly between Black women. And that felt like a very, not only prominent, but very personal part of this film, like the relationships between Black women and girls. And I was really just wanted to, first of all, commend you for that, because I think it's something that's too rare, but also that you found your own way to do it. But I was curious about like the personal impetus for that as a filmmaker, like getting that on screen, putting that in this film, like how important that was to you, because it feels important to me.
It was very, and I mean, it was very important to me. And even the title of the film comes from a conversation with my grandma around a practice meeting in clay dirt. You know, it's like an inherent quality to like a lot I brought to this film. You know, like knowledge that's been passed down to me from my grandma's photo albums, from conversations with my mother, from shooting in Mississippi where my mother is from. You know, and so it was something just that was already inherent to this project, and in a way I didn't even realize, I don't know how close that aspect of it would feel until you get a little distance from it because you're so in it. But I'm so grateful for the conversations I had in the making of this film that unlocked things that I may have never known if not for this film. You know what I mean? As far as knowing some family members better, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about this all night. But I did want to close because I know that, or as I understand it, so much of your experience in scouting locations and finding ways to make the film do have really personal, familial ties for you. There are family links to the places, or in terms of what you wanted to do and what you were trying to explore. Could you tell us a little bit about your family? Because I even remember, I think it was in your Sundance interview, that one of the actors in the film also has family photos or something like that in the film as well. That there's a lot of personal items even in the film that mean a lot, I think, to you.
Yeah, Charlene, there are some photographs of her mother in the family house, like on the wall. Yeah, I think it's a fiction film,
Mm-hmm,
but
of course.
It's important for me to have details that really anchor me in it and like make it emotionally close. And of course, it's already going to be that close, but I think it's helpful for me to, like, for instance, there's photographs from my grandma's photo albums, like on the walls too. We used my dad's fishing reel, his tackle box, you know.
Did you fish?
I fish.
That felt like a scene that I feel like benefited from you knowing how to fish.
And that's his net, I believe, or that has the fish. And so it is also just beyond it being close. It feels like very authentic. You know what I mean? It was really nice for those specific details to like live inside of the film, and because I'm all about the details, and so those details like really being specific and true to me emotionally. For me, it's always a good anchor. You know what I mean? It really grounds it for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us and for your film, and thank you everyone for sticking around and listening to us chat. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you so much for coming.